Hello, I'm Gary York, CorruptionBehindBars.com, and if you're watching me now, you're watching my YouTube channel. Please subscribe. I do different topics about corrections, and I hope that any of you that are out there that are interested in corrections, even if you're not a correctional officer or not a person that works in corrections in any field, I hope that you'll tune in sometimes and just see what we do and kind of hear some things. I think you might be surprised about how the majority of us, I know I've written 2 true crime books about corruption in prison, and I do have a goal to continue to work against corruption in prison, but I think a lot of you will be surprised that the majority of the officers are honest, hard-working, not like people say that they're all crooked. That is false, and I think you will find that many of the officers and prison staff are lifesavers and also try to help change the lives of inmates for the better. But anyway, that's not what today's show is about. Today's show is about my last training day. I'm very excited and sad at the same time. I just did my last training day today for court security / detention deputy for corrections, and I thought since I did a training day today, I might throw some things out there. I've talked to a lot of people across the country who don't have a lot of training that they should have, so I feel very fortunate to work for an agency that provides a lot of training for their officers. I'm so surprised sometimes when I talk to people on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, or even comments on my Corruption Behind Bars Facebook page, or on my YouTube. I'm surprised that some people say, well, we don't have that training in our facility, and we don't do that, and we really need it. And I'm really shocked, because I think across the country, corrections training across the board should try to get on a plain level, because training is what saves lives. And the reason I'm kind of proud to announce today what we did is because our agency teaches every single officer everything together. We don't leave anyone out. Crisis intervention training. Many agencies don't have that. Our agency trains every single officer in crisis intervention training. Cell extraction. Every officer has to train every year in cell extraction. We don't have just our teams that train in that, our specialized teams. We train every officer, and this goes back to what I said in yesterday's video about cross-training and everyone being able to jump in and work a position if another officer is out or if they're needed. And that's why we train everyone in cell extraction. We don't know when an emergency situation is going to arise, and we don't know that we have time to get the specialized teams together. We have to have everyone able to do a cell extraction of an inmate, and the goal is to get them out safely. And remember, we trained today also, there's going to be other inmates sometimes in the cell with the inmate who is being violent. Care, custody, and control is our job. We are here to protect the inmates. Okay, no matter how violent some of them can get every now and then, it's our job to protect them. So we need to think not only about removing the violent inmate out of the cell and how we're going to get that inmate out of that cell safely with the least amount of force necessary, but we also have to remember there's sometimes some innocent inmates in there, and I'm not talking about what they're in for their crime, but I'm talking about on the particular incident at hand that we're handling. These inmates sometimes don't want to participate in it. Some of the inmates are elderly, and they're not going to fight. They want to get out of there. They're just as scared as if they're being attacked. So they want to get out of there. So we have to think about all those things when we do a cell extraction, and that's what we trained on today. Agencies out there across the country, if any of you, of my corrections followers, see this, let your agencies know going back to yesterday's video, cross-training is great. We need to have all officers on the same sheet of music. We also went to the range, and we had to do half a day at the range, and we had to do shooting moving targets, and we had to move and shoot. You know, we all are so used to standing there on the 3-yard line, the 7-yard line, the 15-yard line, some agencies 25-yard line, and shooting at a paper target that just sits there. And in real life, we're not going to have something just sitting there, or a human being that's shooting at us is not going to just sit there in most cases. So our fine instructors tuned it up, made some scenarios, and we had a lot of good firearms training. We had the training with the taser and some scenarios that may happen with the taser. We had some courtroom training and on scenarios that could occur in our courtroom. So remember, you can do this for the jails too. Road deputies do it for the road. It doesn't matter where you work in law enforcement or corrections. All these scenarios, if your agency is not doing them, let's get going, because we want everybody to come home safe and sound. We also had our ethics class, which, you know, as a prison inspector for 12 years in the Florida Department of Corrections, I'm kind of big on folks getting some ethics, and a lot of agencies say they don't spend any time on ethics. And every year for the last few years, our agency has ensured that we talk about ethics. We also talked about protecting our brothers and sisters. It's our duty, if our brothers and sisters are in a incident, and everyone's human, adrenaline starts to flow, everything starts to boil. If you see one of your fellow officers getting to the point where they look like they may do something they shouldn't do, and I'm talking about abuse of an inmate, let's stop them. Let's grab them and pull them out. Let's tap them out and get them out of there. And I'm saying a lot of things that people should know already, but you'd be surprised. A lot of officers know it, but the agencies aren't teaching it. And you have to constantly teach these things, because by stopping an officer from doing a criminal act, such as beating an inmate when the inmate is just verbally upset and talking, all these things can help save not only the officer from criminal charges, but it can help save the agency from very expensive lawsuits. So keep in mind, let's keep everybody clean. If you see an officer crossing the line, and not just with use of force on inmates, but anything. If an officer is going to cross the line, we talked about this in the ethics class, and get too friendly with the inmates, and maybe you notice they might be spending too much time with the inmates, giving the inmates part of their lunch or something, we've got to stop it immediately. You have got to talk to that officer, and if that officer treats you like a snitch, then you just need to go to your supervisor. Because remember, if you see something going on and you don't report it and it's criminal, you could be also involved in a criminal investigation. And it doesn't mean you'll be charged criminally, but administratively the agency can take care of your job forever and terminate you. So it's not worth it. If you have a family and children and a home and responsibilities to go home to, an officer crossing the line is not worth the risk of losing your career and everything you work for. So that was another area we covered. And we also covered weapons retention. And you think, well, you know, some of these things I'm talking about sound more like law enforcement than corrections. That's not true. Correctional officers qualify with handguns and shotguns in most states and most counties. And there are times when we have escapes and you'll be carrying a handgun and shotgun. There's times when you're out on the perimeter in the towers and the gun trucks and you're going to have a shotgun and may have to use it. So weapons retention is not just for law enforcement. Weapons retention is for corrections just as much as anyone else, because corrections does cover law enforcement functions in many ways, on escapes, attempted escapes, crime scenes in the prison. There's so many ways that I could discuss that corrections works as law enforcement. So keep all these things in mind, and remember your statutes. Every state has different statutes. In Florida, use of force is Florida Statute 776, and it's good to know that statute. Our prison statute for prison inspectors that has just about everything in it that we need is 944.47. So if you work in a state and you have prison inspectors, please learn that statute as well, the same statute that the prison inspectors follow. Because if you know what they're looking at and looking for, you'll know what to do and what not to do. Because even honest officers sometimes fall into a trap or fall into manipulation, and just read these things and be aware and save yourself a lot of trouble and a lot of headaches. Also, your statutes for drugs and things like that coming into the prison. And why do I say that? I'm talking to an honest group. If you're watching this, I know you're honest, but you know, we have officers that get the temptation of money, and look at your drug statutes for your state and see how much prison time you can get for bringing drugs into the prison. You know, you say you did all that in an 8-hour day. Well, we did. We broke it up into 4 hours in the morning and an hour for each class in the afternoon. Believe me, with the staff shortages across the country, training is very hard now. Supervisors and leaders and management, you know, they have to fit that in, and they have to get it in somehow. So every day you get that you can use to train officers, you've got to sit down and make a schedule. And our training folks just make great schedules. They can really pack a lot into an 8-hour day, and you're going to be moving. You're going to be moving from one site to another. You finish weapons, you go to taser. You finish taser, you go to cell extraction. So, folks, get out there, get trained, and if your management is not doing these things, get after them. Tell them training saves lives. And I'm Corruption Behind Bars, Gary York. I had my last training day today. That's why I wanted to do this video. I will be retired but not expired, and I will continue after June 8th when I retire this year. I will continue to stay focused on corrections, go to conventions, go to classes, and try to keep up with the trends. Because guess what? That's training. And you don't want to hear from me if I don't know what I'm talking about. But I learned a lot from you folks. That's why I like to go to those conventions and go to training. None of us know everything. That's why training is so important. We have to learn from each other. Also, if you like any of the videos or topics I talk about, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And also, I want to give a shout out to Anthony Ganji from Tear Talk. This is a cup that he gave me, and from his radio show. And he also has a YouTube channel. Please subscribe not only to my YouTube channel, but look at Tear Talk, Anthony Ganji, YouTube, and please subscribe to his channel at Tear Talk. Both Anthony Ganji and I are Corrections 1 writers and contributors, and we appreciate your support. Thank you, and have a great Easter weekend. Stay safe, and those of you that are working, God bless, and come home safe.